5, verses 27. Jesus made a call to Levi, come follow me. This formula for discipleship, becoming like Christ, having the mind of Christ. We noted that this call, well, there are two outlooks. We could look at it as the invitation to discipleship or invitation to salvation, accepting salvation, or we could look at it as a call to ministry and mission. Either way, the first point to note is that the call is God's initiative. It's divine initiative. It's a divine initiative. Initiative meaning it starts with the divine. It begins with the divine. The divine is another word for God, divinity, divine, godness. So God took the first step. God took the first step. God in Jesus took the first step. Before we're thinking of God, God was thinking of us. Well, some persons tend to say that I have found Christ, and we understand. I suppose they are speaking from their personal experience, their inner experience there. But God made the first step. Unless Christ draws us to Him, then no one can come. And whenever God acts, whenever God speaks, there will be a response.
Christ draws or God draws?
We can use the term so that the question is it Christ who draws us, or is it God who draws? So it's one and the same in the basic sense. If you get technical, you might say no, but Christ is God and God is Christ, right? It's the triune God, one God expressed in three persons, in the sense that it's not three separate God or there are three personalities. So it's like saying different faces at different time, different personalities at different time. Matthew, says.
What I ask is that when Jesus came to believe that it was God, and he said to these people that God have to draw you, you can read more. And this is so that's the reason why
Right, and the same thing happens today. So yes, when Christ came, many did not recognize Him, and still the same today. The Spirit is working. Persons are numb to what the Spirit is doing. Many doesn't recognize what the Spirit is doing and what God is doing today, and that's what he said that even at His next coming, that many will not recognize Him, and also that His coming will be sudden, right? So same as it was then, so it is today. So Jesus is God, Son of God. So the Father is God, same person. The Son is God, same person. Spirit is God, one and same person, expressed at different times. Same. That's what the I am mean. I am who I am, in the sense that whatever the situation demands, God will become who we want. Well, God will become what is necessary. That I correct myself there. In that God will become who we want Him to become. God doesn't always is not left up to us, It's not necessarily left up to us. But if we have a need, God will respond then. So if it is provider at a given time, another time it may be as protector, others the deliverer, comforter, and so forth. So whatever the situation demands or whatever the situation needs, God will respond appropriately there to as shepherd. Um, Point to note that the Trinity is never easily explained, as God is never easily explained. Um, Not even for those who have studied, those who have multiple PhDs and masters, they'll tell you whenever you show me that person who can comfortably and fully explain the Trinity. So I will, who am I? I will not dare to even present myself in any way. Challenge. They get controversial about the God and Trinity and try and say they might even go to one verse and say, but it says this here, and go to another verse and say, oh, but this verse says this here, and so forth. When I suppose farther along we will know all about it. We will know all about it. It's not to say, though, that we should run from the hard questions, but we must also admit how limited our understanding is. And like Paul, we have never attained perfection or full understanding or knowledge. Right. So you will hear me use those words interchangeably in terms of Christ or God. If you want to do a study on who Jesus is, you would get specific there. You would get specific in terms of understanding the Father, different from the Son, and also different from the Holy Spirit there. You just what? You sorry, oh, right. It's one and the same. Right, at different time. As for Christians, as it was for the Hebrews, we believe in one God, monotheistic, mono meaning one, theist, God, believing in God. We believe, and that's what Marcus as different from the other faith around Israel. If you should ask, what is that marked difference? Is that most, if not all, the other groupings or religions, if you may, there in the Old Testament, that they are polytheistic, that they believe in more than one God, right? Right, in the commandment, behold, I am one, and you should have no other God beside me. Right, so that one is. I have also heard a reference to the one way to salvation, which is through Jesus, which marks us as different from the others. Okay, so you have that response from Levi. Levi's response to the invitation or the call is that left all, he left everything. And if you see how short that verse is, I believe this is intentional. And Luke as a linguist, I'm sure he is intentional. And we have made that point in the introduction. How is it that Luke is a skilled writer and he's very deliberate in terms of repetitions and how he structure his sentences and his writing in general. So I'm sure the writer is trying to bring out a point. He left all. Left all. I asked this question yesterday of someone. I asked if it is that you say if the person name is Pam, if you Pam, you're called to go to Saint Elizabeth. You're sent to Saint Elizabeth to as a missionary. You must have left all. What would be your response? I have to go back and get this. Not to mention, I have to go and get my special phone. Oh yes, for some, I have to take my special pillow or WhatsApp. For others, they will just flatly deny this and no. Can you come back next year? So come back after Christmas, after my birthday. Yeah, I have plans. I have plans. And we laugh about it, but there is such a case in the gospel referred to as the would-be disciples. Those who they say, I just buy a land and I have to go to take care of. Oh, and this one say, oh, I have to go and take care of my parent and da, da, da. And this other one say that, well, I just got married. I must go and attend. Right, so the point to note is when you look at all of this, you notice they dig for their best excuse in those cases. And I guess, I don't know if they were playing on Jesus' emotions, but it kind of look a little hard to say otherwise, to say no, because you just buy a land, boy. Or better yet, I must go and care for my parents. How dare Jesus to say no, you should not go and take care of your parents. On today, in the world today, because we're not, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, and I understand the passion and conviction. I'm not disputing that. But what I want us to do is not only to just interpret the scripture in a bubble or in this cave far away from reality, or to think of reality today. Why is it that you don't have more young persons preaching the gospel? I think of, for example, presently at UTC, and many might say, well, UTC is not for everybody, but nevertheless, at UTC presently as we speak, there are only 3 students. Where's everybody?
There was not a question on that subject. Not a question on that subject.
Where's everybody? Even look at, for example, and if you even don't want to go at talk about UTC point, talk about the local church. You persons, if you not even have to talk about being deacon or an officer. Just talk about being, say, preacher on Sunday. You want a preacher, or even pulpit exchange is coming up very soon. Everybody, can't manage that, no sir. And where you send me again? All the way down at Jackson Town? No sir, Jackson Town too far, and them the bad road. No. I'll stay right here.
I understand what you said, but as I said before, if you have a relationship with God and you're calling, you now hesitate and not when you come to God's business. That's the guy look at it. Anyhow, you dedicate yourself to God, where you have a relationship with God and you're calling. What you going to do? Question God?
Well, persons question the call though. Moses question. Think of Moses. Moses said, what if they don't believe me? What should I do? Yeah, there will be an answer and a remedy, but the point is, don't say that there won't be questions. Look at Jeremiah. Jeremiah asked us, but I'm just a boy. Propose to him, this. Don't say you're just a boy. I am with you, and all. But the point I just want us to make is that throughout the entire Bible, they ask questions though, and there were even doubts too. Well, Jonah tried to run, and that's another point of the call. You can run, but how far can you run? Right, and I remember you saying that, but the reality is persons today are they find other priorities, other agendas, and that's a part of the whole wrestling with the call. And you would question whether these persons are called or not. But then again, those who are fully passionate and respond, they are persons who will question whether they are called or not and say, "Oh, you not call, or you don't sound like a call," and it's the reality. To note that with the whole call and the local experience, persons their response is, well, same way I have my house, leave my house and so on, in Hanover to go all the way to Trelawney, or I have lands, or I have my profession. I am a teacher or accountant, and maybe you probably say, well, it's not about money, but truth be told, you need money, and you have, and the church have expectations as well, and so, say for example, some will say, well, ministry, probably only thing was presented is $10,000. While as a accountant, I can get 50,000, which is 5 times that. So all of that, whether we want to say, well, these people only looking at money or not, the fact still remain. These are points which they will consider.
But Jesus, if we follow through what Jesus calls it, how knowledge and what Jesus called, then this is a he drawn from.
Well, that's one of the point here, that we get into with this person, Levi, that with the point I'm making is that he had a profession and a well-paid one too. As tax collector, the way the scripture make it out, he was well-paid, maybe like a senior attorney, maybe QC, or but a job that is well-paid, and yet he left everything. He left even the job. And you would question why he did that. And the next point is that he stepped out in the uncertain, right? Which will take faith. Because he stepped out. Remember, you resign your job, your well-paid job, where you get probably 3 or 5 times, and you step out in something that you only hear this teacher say, "Come follow me." You don't know, you don't know how my dinner gonna go, how my bills gonna go. Come follow me. Okay, then.
Jesus knows what's in the calling. Jesus knows what's in the calling.
Right. But there are also some genuine persons who are called and they fight and resist the call. But they want to say if they were truly called. But I believe there are some that are truly called and them fight. Of course, they will have to give an account for that, but
The Bible says,
they did.
then you're called, but you choose them.
Many called, but few chosen.
Who's turned on one of the devil. So there's so many things about
Well, that's one thing I reflect on in recent times, that you mentioned that, that Jesus was pastor to all of the persons, and you will wonder, why did he call Peter when he know that he's going to deny him? Why did he call Judas when he know what Judas gonna do? And those who were always having issues within, who want to be on the right, who want to be on the left, and all of that. There were issues among them, and yet, why did he put up all of that? Better yet, why did he put up with one who have weapon and would dare to cut off high priest servant's ears? He was a pastor to all. I guess Jesus is the biggest example of a pastor, a shepherd. So as you mentioned that they were all there. So let's we think that, well, today church have too much issues and all of that. Huh? Check Jesus. Check out Jesus.
easy word, This is actually, easy, it's not easy, and we have to have double strength of faith. Because some people do some things and something, easy, you just give them sign up.
And that's where Christ comes in, Because sometimes, had it not been for Jesus, only Jesus knows what sometimes you would do, had it not been for the cross. Had it not been for the cross.
So that's for me. So there was in my head going and call us up. They were there and call them. Nobody answers. Oh my God, say that I'm ready to go to the this is something big deal like from my dad is young. This person and I switch. Oh God, I can remember what we want so far last time, the Lord never really. I say, oh God.
Yeah, man,
I had to make several trips. I'm in the plan. They never did what I was going to say. I figured out, no, they can't come out of the house and say, this person will breakfast, they see by the store. And they cut and look there like, this man say.
yes, I can imagine. Yeah.
Easy to get everything up.
Yeah, think of the past. Think of the past, and that's the past. Probably go to 3 times the amount. You know. Mm. Yeah, man, it needs strength.
First, you have to stop and think what Jesus did. Yeah, that's it. Think about it, then you understand that people get across alone and do.
I hear what Jesus said. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Sometimes they do it in ignorance. Do it, do it in ignorance.
Even you rise from the dead. The pain soul person said, look, God tell you that you deserve to come and steal him away. And until this day, you have what the Jews don't believe.
Yeah, it is, and my testimony as well. I mean, takes great faith and fortitude, because sometimes pastor feel, and when I say pastor, let me say myself, not just use the third person, feel discouraged, and sometimes even not only remembering Jesus. Sometimes when I remember my church home, and I remember all of those wonderful faces who express confident that, I believe you're called. I said, oh man, I can't disappoint you. And even in this circuit and other circuits I've served, I remember all, the supporters who have encouraged and said, hold on, you can do it. You believe you can do it. And, all of those words encourage me. You know,
And that is what parents do all the time, I'm not gonna let you people bring me up to you. That's all.
Yeah, cause I mean, and it's like in the wilderness, and that's what the enemy wants. Remember, we're wrestling not against flesh and blood. It's a spiritual battle, and we always have to bear that in mind. The spiritual warfare. And that's what the enemy wants, and to laugh and say, "Hey, I've gotten another one." That's what he wants. I mean, for Jesus, it might be, say, turn the stones into bread. For us, maybe for you, yours is like it come in that shape. Mine might take another shape, but the testings are all along there. And when they ah yeah, right, and I and for me, all it helps sometimes. I, professionalism, I always look on ministry, and not that I have mastered, but sometimes when some matters come, I side. I said, I hear you. How can you, and I have to respond. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I remember also in Philippians 4, verse 8, whatever is lovely and of good report. And this is what it is to have the mind of Christ. What it is to have the mind of Christ. So that's when we put faith in action. When we leave here, all that we have studied, that we got there. So it's not an academic drill, or exercise. We have to put our faith in practice, put our faith in practice. Okay, so when we talk about Luke chapter 5, verses 27 onwards, the response is a struggle. The call is disruptive. It is disruptive. It disrupts agenda, because I'm sure for Levi had his agenda, and he had this business or career which was going on good. So the call is sudden and it is disruptive. We also noted the call is not convenient. It's never convenient. Ministry is never convenient. I am sure there's so much, we noted it before, there's so much that you could be doing than being here today. And now I don't know what your agenda is, but I'm sure you probably could be eating your dinner, or probably at the spa, getting their feet rubbed, or I don't know. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you could just been on your veranda, put up your feet. You could, oh wow. Beacon Case just coming in from a long day. I'm sure she probably want to get home to eat. Yeah. So it's not convenient. Ministry is never. Yeah, it is possible. It is. Right. And I tell you, even though we might record and some persons be online, it's never the same, I can imagine. Well, for some person it work. Ah, you can quote each verse. I read for you. I persons back east. There's a person in St. Thomas. They refer to him as a walking Bible. I mean, he could just. And I doubt, yeah, he could read too, and he could just quote the Bible like that, and where to find this, that. In Portland, the first place I went as student pastor, in Moortown. That's a maroon town. There's a deacon. I don't think he's a good reader, the strongest of reader. But the hymnal, he knows the hymns. Oh, just pull a hymn, and he can even like track and all. He knows the hymns. Just announce the hymn and start. He'll lead, and he doesn't have a hymnal. And all of that, and it's not like here where in persons like to track hymns and so forth. They just sing and he can follow like he has the hymnal before him. That's no like that. Right. So, right. So we know those about the call. There's another point about the call. In 29, throw a party. Levi threw a party. But was everybody happy for him? Because what we could note about this is that for Levi or Matthew, I see this party as one of like, salvation, what is happening on the inside. it brings celebration, rejoicing. I can't keep it down. It's like the woman at the well. Come and see one. It must be the Christ. It brings so much joy. Rejoice because of the Redeemer. There's a hymn, Nisa said, come and rejoice with me, for once my heart was poor and once I found a treasury of love, a boundless store. So there's this rejoicing, but there are others who weren't so happy with this celebration. And we know the charge which was given there, which we are going to look at that quickly. In verse 30, but their scribes and Pharisees murmured against his disciples, saying, why do ye eat and drink with publicans and sinners? Why do we eat and drink publicans and sinners? Do we note anything about? Oh my God. Oh, yeah, that's a good translation. And but that's the essence of it. It was coined on some persons, It's a society with classism, social classism, racism, and all of that. Well, we still have a little classism today, but boy, back then it's like, and people wouldn't eat from you, and they just don't deal with you. You're just not in my league. But here, what do you note about the characters? Um, who are they accusing? The Pharisees and scribes. No, we are getting about three responses. Were they accusing? One person said they were accusing Levi. One said they were accusing the disciples. One said they were accusing Jesus. Who was they? Who were they accusing? Jesus had them problem. Jesus is the disciples. All right, so the disciples. Okay, all right. Look at verse 31. And I did not waste my time after all. I thought we forget that point. So, right, so Jesus turned the spokesperson. I don't know if you have ever see something. Maybe you have gone out on a date, a man and a woman, and one person always speaking up for the other. You ask one person, in most times, normally the man speaking up. Like, you ask the lady a question, and the man said, oh, she this, that, like, she have a mouth, make she answer for herself. So Jesus speak up for the disciples. What do you make of this? Great theologians and Bible scholars. What do you make of this? Are the disciples the accusation was made against, but Jesus answered. Right, what does it say about who Jesus is, his role? What role was he playing there?
Prove to them that he's coming for the righteous.
Well, that was the response he gave, that he didn't come for the righteous cause sinners. But in terms of the role, he was, well, Deacon K said it, a protecting role. So he was being a shepherd to them. He was playing a shepherding role. He was protecting them, defending them, let me deal with this sort of thing. Stay behind. Or like a mommy or daddy, and when something happen with the child and so forth, wait, I gotta go down there. Your horse gone down the road. And you see, you're playing a protective role. You're playing that shepherding kind of role there. That's what we see coming out elsewhere in the Old Testament, it says, "So he will gather Israel as a hen gather chicks under its wings." So it's a kind of shepherding, a protecting role. And yes, Deacon Buckle, the response that he defends is that, well, I come for sinners. What does it also say about the party, the nature of the party, and I suppose the accusation which was being passed is that you should select who you hang out with, persons of your class. But it's not only those in the class was there. So what point is this making? That the celebration is open. In the kingdom, there is no race, class, sex, or language. It's open to all, open invitation. But they wanted to put on handcuff and restriction.
That's why you gotta say clearly.
I hear you. I hear you. I would have to check on that verse as you do me. I like to look in the passage in which it comes.
The one place it is said here because there's certain things why I say so after Christ I already told you said
Basically, it doesn't look at the outward appearance. There's something deeper. I get the point you're making. I get the point you're making. There,
believe you can be too righteous or you can be too holy.
Right. So grace is what we see coming out. This open invitation and grace. Open invitation and grace. Alrighty. So right. So we see that play there. It's to the disciples, but Jesus responded. Okay. When a parable was used there also with the explanation, verses 36 through 39. Luke chapter 5, verses 36 through 39. And he spake also a parable unto them. No man putteth a piece of a new garment upon an old. If otherwise, then both the new maketh a rent, and the piece that was taken out of the new agreeth not with the old. And no man putteth new wine into old bottles, else the new wine will burst the bottles and be spilled, and the bottles shall perish. But new wine must be put into. So this is a parable here. It's a parable. And I did say, I think I hear the answer. It refers to the covenant. So the old covenant, so it's a comparison being done there with the old covenant and the new covenant, or the law, and what is happening in the New Testament. Yes, when we look at, so we hear this reference old new, this back and forth going on with old new, old garment, old bottle, new bottle, old wine, new wine, that back and forth, and if we hear those, almost like a riddle, a rhythm, this repetition back and forth. If we know anything about Luke, that is a skill writer. I'm sure this whole talk of new, old, it's not by chance. Nothing by chance. So of course, it would fit in well in fact, in light of the fact that for the audience, that their issue with the old covenant and not understanding the full nature of the new covenant, the new agreement, or the new arrangement God has with God's creation. Any question as we try to rush on into do a little highlight of chapter 6, verses 1 through 11? Any question? We welcome those who are joining us online. There's a person online, not sure who it is, but welcome whoever you are. So happy that you're joining Spring Garden Baptist Church with our Bible study at this time. And of course, I have heard of even persons from my home circuit send me a message that, oh, I tune into Bible study. So, right. So, the interesting thing about technology and evangelism these days, you go far and wide. No, oh, yeah, yeah, but I'm sure they appreciate the naturalness of it. They don't want the proper scripted that need to do our homework. But they don't want the script. I'm sure they like the testimony and the real life. They wanted a script, they would go to a college Bible study thing or whatever. I'm sure they like the real life. Okay, right. So, any question that was asked? Any nothing? Okay, all
I
right.
have to go back and check this one, guys, spend time and time on this.
Oh, the parable.
Yeah, and I'll be brief down too. Because I go over and I search the scripture.
You see, I can tell it's not one of the easiest parables because some of them kind of give hint, kind of almost, well, let me not say straightforward, but it kind of give, some of them kind of give a little hint we can have a safe interpretation. But this one, you like scratch your head and like, oh, what is happening here?
Then they ask you, why you speak to them in parables?
Hmm.
And you respond to
So it is given, so it's not.
because they're not going to go, you are not to speak to in parables, but they know.
Hmm.
But anyway, I spent time to research some of my.
And that's why it's important to study the Bible in context. Because you will look at the usage of these key terms, new, old, and all of that, and in light of what was happening in the passage. Of course, it was they were having an issue with salvation and all of that, and the law, and who was the audience at the time. The audience was the Pharisees and scribes. Of course, they had an issue with that. So that's how you do a proper interpretation in context. But if you just snatch out a verse here and there whenever it's convenient, we can do great damage.
Islam was 6 or 7 years before you have to really search to read. And this is
Those what verse? 36 to 38, 30,
33,
or 33,
9.
33 to 39. Right. Context. Okay, so chapter 6, verses 1 through 11. Do we have a volunteer reader? Okay. Luke 6. Oh, you can.
And it came to pass on the second Sabbath, after the first, that he went through the corn field, and his disciples plucked the ears of corn, and he, rubbing them in their hand, and a certain of the Pharisees and said unto them, why do ye that which is not lawful to do on the Sabbath day? Jesus answered them, said, have we not we so much as said was upon into the house of God, and he did, and he the showbread, and gave also to them that were within, which is not lawful to eat, but for the feast alone. He said unto them, that the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. And Jesus fulfilled in verse 6. And it came to pass also on the night Sabbath that he entered into the synagogue and taught, and there was a man whose right hand was withered. And the scribes and Pharisees watching whether he would eat on the Sabbath day renewed their thoughts and said to the man which had the withered hand, rise up, stand forth in the midst. And he arose and stand forth. Then said Jesus unto them, I will ask you one thing. Is it lawful on the Sabbath day to do good or to do evil? To save life or to destroy it? And looking round about upon them, he said unto the man, stretch forth thy hand. He did so, and his hand was restored whole as the other. They were filled with madness and communed one with another.
Thank you, Deacon Buckle. We have here a dispute over the Sabbath. That's Luke chapter 6, verses 1 through 11, a dispute over the Sabbath. Interesting to note, which we can easily overlook, is that there are actually two events taking place in this reading.
Yes.
And possibly some readings suggest that it was two separate events on two separate Sabbaths. It's one of the challenge with scriptures and understanding timing, that if we're not careful, we can read as though things are happening immediately, like hour after hour, day after day. Sometimes in some particular books or chapters, sometimes it even spans years and so forth. And you just give a summary of something that has happened over maybe a 10-year period, or over a 20-year period, and sometimes longer. So you have to bear that in mind. So it's probably two separate Sabbaths. Those S's. Yes, sir.
Here are, as I read verse 5 verse here. Jesus was trying to let his Pharisee already knew that he had authority over the Sabbath.
If you could say more about that, in terms for clarity, you said authority over the Sabbath. What do you mean? Because in that we have to be specific, because we don't want persons to live with the wrong word.
That's why you have to read at the same context. So when you read the first 5 verse, when I say Jesus had authority over the Sabbath, he made known to them from verse 6 to 11. When they didn't believe that there's nothing you're supposed to do on the Sabbath day.
Mhm.
And that's why Jesus said, whether you want to think to do, you do, I do. So Jesus proved to them that you can do good on the Sabbath. The Sabbath is not because when we from the Old Testament, that you are doing the New Testament. Jesus Christ represents the Sabbath.
Right, so they see that he is about the Sabbath and the representation. That's what I'm waiting on. So the Sabbath points to him, and he is actually fulfilling the Sabbath. So that's the point I wanted to hear, and to share the other side, that it can be wrongly taken, that to mean to say he is over the Sabbath, probably to say that he is above and beyond, and he's not accountable to, and he can destroy or overthrow it, because we want to remember that he also said he did not come to change the law and all of that, but to fulfill. So is that thing that whenever we speak, even whether preaching or wherever, as public speakers, always bear in mind that the audience, if you have 5 persons can live with 5 different things, and sometimes half of it is far from what you intended. So it is best as possible to be clear and on what. So it's not trying to contradict what you're saying, but you want to be clear. It's a principle that you want to be clear what I'm saying.
Jesus is the Sabbath, represents the Sabbath. Because when you read the Old Testament, it's all about Jesus.
So if the Sabbath is about rest, it means that Jesus gives rest, and in Jesus you can find rest. He said, "Come unto me, all who have labored and are heavy laden, and I will." But I guess they don't see it that way.
The first thing I want you to
In the fullest sense, yes, but you can also have a foretaste, don't you think? Don't you think you're enjoying rest in Jesus now as you are in the working for Him? Isn't it that you are at peace with yourself? Right, but yeah, I know you will not fully, it will not be fully ushered in and inaugurated until that day, but you can have a for experience. Right, right.
God created this world on the sixth day, finish on rest on the seventh day. God, He didn't create that anymore. If you tell me what else He created.
Right. So the Sabbath crowns creation.
It's like I'm saying just now, a while ago, that rest is when He return.
Right. Another point.
There's more work for you to do when He comes. That's the new
Interesting. I have heard my pastor they suggest this point once that well, when he return, is it that there will be just rest? Sorry, say that? Or right? Is it just floating around, carefree, doing nothing, or is it that you will have more work? Is it that you'll have more service to do? Probably in heaven, like how the angels have stuff to do, ministering spirits. So is it that we will be ministering in another way, more work?
I have so more until I was trying to continue to see because He said He would be with Him. So I don't know what it's gonna be like.
Right.
I know.
Right. So
I can answer that one.
you want to well, you want to see him, and you also want to be with him and fellowship. It's a complete statement. Because remember, the scripture said, "All eyes will see him, even those who are evil will see him." So it's not only just seeing him, but to live and reign with him. Right. So don't just stop at the scene, but yeah. But I get you well though. You get to see you're with him. Right. But I know some hymns say just one glimpse of him in glory. Will the toil of life repay? Right. So we have this Sabbath. Another point I was saying about the Sabbath is the purpose of the Sabbath. What is the Sabbath for? I think is a point that Jesus was trying to make. And what is the response? The purpose of the Sabbath is to do good. To do good. And how else we could phrase that? To do good and to save lives. Isn't it that what he said? So the man which was healed, which is the second event, that's saving life. Healing is saving life. And the first one too is saving life because he ate on the Sabbath way, which with the whole quarantine. Can you imagine if he didn't eat, what would happen? He could die, could end up in hospital. So I mean, in either case, it's about saving life. Why do we meet in worship, whether today, Saturday, Sunday, whenever? It is to transform lives, to give life, this life which is possible in the spirit, living in the spirit. Deacon Buckle was about to make a point.
Yeah, what our board say, let me read the first verse in chapter 6. Yeah, I let me read the first verse in Matthew 28, the resurrection of Jesus. Is it really combined together?
The first verse of chapter 6.
Yes.
And it came to pass on the second Sabbath after the first that he went through the cornfield, and his disciples plucked the ears of corn and did eat, rubbing them in their hands.
First, second Sabbath. And in Matthew chapter 28, the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn towards the first first day of the week. So I struggle over this two verse of scripture. Because when the writer said, in the end of the Sabbath, as we want to dawn to the first day of the week.
Matthew 28, verse how much?
1.
Verse 1. In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn towards the first day of the week, I suppose that would be Saturday evening in a sense, according to today's standard. Came me. Oh, Sunday morning. Yeah, so the first day of the week would be Sunday morning, right?
So why the writer didn't put the first, just Sunday is the first Sabbath?
Interesting.
I struggled with this for years.
Right, but okay. And it came to pass the second Sabbath after the first.
Yes, I answer, but you please say there.
Okay. All right. So in chapter 6, second after the first, I remember we said about the number of Sabbaths. It seemed like it's their way. They're trying to place number. They're trying to number the events. Remember, I said it's possibly were on. Don't read it as though it happened on the same day, but it could be more than one Sabbath.
One Sabbath day. One Sabbath day, and Jesus was walking through some graves.
For verse 1, right. So, what I hear about that reading, it's saying in speaking verse 1, it's like saying that childhood story once upon a time. So and that's it's like saying on a particular day this was happening. So that's the first event. It took place on a particular day, and then came another event. Because remember chapter 6, chapter 6 verse 6, it says, and it came to pass also on another Sabbath. So it's not the same day, so it's another Sabbath. So right. So there, it's just so it depends on the right use of language.
But you know, that in because I don't know exactly the chapter, but when God was talking to Moses, the Sabbath, Saturday and Sunday is just whatever God tell him to do is he tell him to do it Sunday. And I have a look up and
Right. Right. And I await that research would be helpful. What I must note for us to contemplate as well, which you probably might have heard of it before, is that the calendar that we use today is not the same as it was for the Jews. So the same, and that's one of the big dispute that persons use with the Sabbath keepers who make issues over Saturday, who say Saturday is the seventh. According to the calendar we use now, it falls on Saturday. We regard Saturday as the seventh, but that was not. The Gregorian and all sort of different calendar. I'm not an expert on those stuff, so I won't get into that and make a fool of myself. But in a simple way to say that the calendars are different, and the calendars that we use today is not the same as the Jews or the Hebrews use. So if we should do a translation, probably when you match it out, might be a Wednesday or the Sabbath, and so who knows? Today we are we are probably at the Sabbath day, or it could be probably on a Thursday or a Friday. I don't know. Whenever. So. Well, right, that too, because some persons, because we regard that, say, even as Baptists, that calendar is just a day set aside when we meet and we meditate and give God thanks, but we are not declaring that this day is accurate day, because there are several points which you will dispute that. Like, for example, um, as, Christmas as we know it today snows. Yeah, well, in some parts of the well, it doesn't snow here, but like where Jesus' birth take place, it would be snowing on the 25th, and but shepherds were out in the field. So clearly, they would have gone when it is warm. So it has to be maybe a month or two before. So some persons suggest that right, it could be October, the best month, of course. And that's why October is just a nice month. I'm sure we could agree about October and or September.
There's a United States. I'm so strong.
I guess climate change, maybe like now how we are experiencing like a hurricane season kind of weather now with ongoing rains. Personally saying we have never seen that in this time. It's normally something like in June, July, thereabout. All right. So so I just wanted to share that in terms of calendar, that just to bear that in mind. Uh, Let us note in terms of I kind of struggle in terms of Matthew chapter 28, verses 1, and the point you refer to. In terms of the connection, I'm not sure. The Sabbath here, the end of the Sabbath, and the first was more dating the first day of the week. So I'm not quite sure how the two connect though, in terms of Luke chapter 6. Not sure. Verse 1.
Somewhat here, but it's also rather different verse in the second. I translated like that because it's somewhat here problem when Jesus comes.
Right. And sometimes the writers too, to be honest, sometimes they have, well, I'm not sure about Luke, because I said Luke tend to be good writing, but some writers in scripture tend to have grammatical challenge, as you can imagine. Not everybody masters the grammar of language. In talking about early and Sunday morning in your translation, that would be a doctrinal bias already, because readily that person already assumed that the next day is Sunday, which maybe the Adventists would disagree with that. So you clearly maybe a Sunday worshiper is on that team that do that translation. So we have to bear that in mind. Biases.
The reason why I'm struggling over this understanding. Jesus' resurrection. Why would you pray to this way? The end of the Sabbath.
And the thing that
Is
is
it
on
end?
who
Is the
was the
Sabbath
first
end?
day.
No,
You
I'm
have to read
saying,
all of the
is the
sentences.
Sabbath end?
Right, the Sabbath had ended.
Yes, yeah, it's
The
ended.
day itself.
But where is it? Is it in the end of the Sabbath? Someone
So remember, it wouldn't be the Saturday evening, because they said, remember, there's another clause, which says as day was dawning. So it wasn't the Saturday evening, Saturday as we know it today. It was more referring to the other day. Right, it was referring to dawn, so it would be a morning hour. Right. It could probably a before day.
All of the sentences.
Like some persons who like to go jogging early morning before daylight. Yeah, so they leave out just before daybreak.
End of the Sabbath. And the thing that is on.
Right, so like in the 3, 4 o'clock, perhaps.
is the end. This is Sabbath end when Jesus resurrected.
When Jesus was away.
So they're saying to you that you will worship on Saturday. You can look at it. In a sense, not even believe that. So what I'm saying is the Sabbath end when Christ has the right to say here in the end.
Well, I don't think well, I hear you, but the thing is, I've never heard, an issue. Remember, I say I don't know everything, but I never heard, a point made in terms of Jesus' resurrection and the Sabbath being the fact that Jesus rose was to end the Sabbath. You know,
But
I haven't heard it that way.
doctrine or the Sunday is two main subject again, and is the Sabbath and the Ten Commandments. And that's why you find some of the people in Seventh-day Adventist Church continue to worship God. They believe in the Sabbath and the Ten Commandments. Yeah, so you got to know about the Ten Commandments here. So
Yeah, they're very mechanical. Let's say they're mechanical, but I mean, to each his own. I don't fight against them. That's to each his own. So I don't think I think there are persons in the Adventist church going to heaven, and most of them too, who are right with God. So I am not like them who would think that only them alone going to be with Christ.
problem is the teaching.
Yeah, I know that they are doctrinal persons, persons about doctrines, and so they will find verses. How they normally do is what is referred to as proofreading, where this other thing I'm referring to, wherein they just go over here and they just pull out one verse which match theirs, and they come here so and pull another one and they try to paste them together. The challenge with it is that it will. And if you now, as a Baptist, you go and say to them, "Oh, you need to interrupt," they'll try to shut you off quickly because they know where you're going. And oh, no, 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 what kind of context can? And they'll try to hush you up quick, because they know if they're giving too much of what they're saying, they're gonna lose. But so their strong point is the bits and pieces and matching the bits and pieces, which is some refer to as proofreading. Yeah, right. They do that too. And if you catch them off guard on a verse that they never planned for, it's like they're dumbfolded for it.
I want to tell you something. I've been with them so many times, but they're really scared of me.
And they what?
They're really scared of me.
Oh,
Even in touch with the Bible.
you are right.
I said, what about this part here?
Initially, I used to like preparing to debate with them, until a point, I reached a point where I said, "What am I doing? I think I'm wasting my time here. There is more thing to do in the kingdom than that." And so, what I try to learn from them too and understand what they do. So, when I was back home, I used to collect all of their magazines and I study it. I study how to read it, and I receive from them, and I read it and I get stuff from what they're saying. Mind you, they will not do the same for us, though. They will probably kiss their teeth at us. They'll not, because they regard what we're saying as foolishness. But as I said, not to throw the baby with the bathwater, or to throw away the flesh of the fish, substance of the fish with the bone. So you can take off the nice part and throw away the bone. So I think there are points in everything to receive there. So in terms of the Sabbath, there more of doctrine on just selecting passages, and it can be dangerous. So we have to interpret scriptures in context. Okay, so we are going to leave at that for today. There is one expression I want as you go to ponder on in verse 8. Rise up and stand forth in the midst. Yes. Yeah, and he knew their thoughts and said to the man, he said to the man which had the withered hand, rise up and stand forth in the midst. So Jesus gave him that instruction. The point I want to note about this is that in order to get your deliverance, it also requires action on your part, right? You have to be able to get up. Some persons they want you to help them, but they just sit down. Give me something now. Give me something. It's sort of thing. You have to get up too. So rise up. So in teaching, you have to teach them how to fish too. That sort of thing, not in terms of doing evangelism, not just distributing. Yeah, you're gonna help them partly, but while you're giving you help them to be independent as well. And in all the cases where Jesus healed and all of that, he tell persons to rise up, get up. The man who was sitting at the pool, lame, and keep complaining, oh, and then somebody always he said, get up. Get up. There's always this instruction to get up. To be that action to rise up there in order to get our deliverance. You ever see a person want healing? They only sit down in the chair and grumble every day. Probably even asking, come to worship now? Or can we have a prayer meeting with you? And they grumble, oh, about this, that, and they have all the excuse in the world. You see a person struggling and they are destroying their life and going on, and you said, follow me to a prayer meeting, and I'll journey with you and so forth. No, they're not willing. They want the deliverance, they want the breakthrough, but they want to sit down in whatever they are doing and get it. They're not. You have to break out of your struggle, your experience in getting. You notice even Jesus said in terms of finding the open door, he said to knock. You have to make an effort on your part to knock on the door and to seek. You have to do. It takes effort on your part. Yeah, but maybe it is a case where only a few will make it and maybe that's why not everybody get to get the deliverance or the breakthrough. So willingness. So we can look at willingness and the action. So even in preaching.
Sometimes they want the deliverance. Because some people don't believe that they change their life from this way to the godly way. They can get deliverance. They think about it in a different way.
Well, true.
Move to respond
And some might say, well, the Jesus way too slow. Can think of a faster way. So evangelism is complicated. You even invite you say invite a person to worship. What church I do for me? So me coming, what that I got change. Evangelism is very complicated. I see even one person help and them a cuss at the same time when I go on. And you wonder, boy, all when you're at this stage, it's still miserable like and make all sort of excuse. This struggles. Okay, so as we go, we continue to so we'll read the remainder of chapter 6. For our devotion. I won't say homework. Read the remainder of chapter 6 for our devotions. There.
You can read this very soon because
Mm,
you start in verse 6 to 11. And verse 6 to 11, Jesus, let's say, 6 to 5 first, 1 to 5, Sabbath. Subtracting 6 to 11 is the Sabbath. 12 to 16, where Jesus chose 12 disciples. So if you mark it out, you can get the context, I get the full understanding of Spirit of God, let me do us to understand what he's saying. And then from 17 to 19, you read again that Jesus heals many. And then from 20 to 26 again, you know, Jesus teach about blessing and curse. And from 27 to 36, love your enemies. After this teach about blessing and curse. 27, 36. Love your enemies. And from 37 to 42, do not judge others. And then finally on from 43 to 45. And the illustration of trees and their fruits.
So I see you're mastering using the Bible, and if you see how Deacon Buckle has broken it down, in that we have enough for our devotion for the whole week. Well, for a month. And what it means, and interesting that you say a month, because we can be in a mad rush to try to probably even breeze and read off the whole light in one morning and miss 90% of what is there, because we bite off more than we can chew, right? So and it's a part, how you break it down just now, we're talking about context and sections. It shows you that you could get probably a 10 or 15 sermons out of that. Not to make probably more, because even in one particular section you probably can approach it from 2 or 3 different point of view or angle and all of that. So
Because to complete the chapter from 46 to 49, it's so powerful that you want to blow it up. That's those four verses here. Build on the rock.
build on the rock. Right, and there are some terms and words I hear just now which are loaded, that we have to sit down and wrestle with these words and not just gloss over it. Oh, rock. I mean, investigate the significance of rock in biblical language, such as he even said to Peter that you're a rock.
That's why I spend time. I have 3 Bibles.
And you can compare, make references, and so forth. That's one point too, in terms of words usage, and you compare, like even what Sister Hastings have been doing. I see this, and she has more than one Bible with her. You compare the word, how it's used here, the word, how it is used there, and that can give us some deep insight. Right, a clearer understanding, and it helps us as we prepare for sermon, open our eyes, and not just sermon, whether it is prayer meeting or Sunday school or whatever it is that we do, our Bible study. It helps us open our eyes. So when we speak with power. We don't just be like the person who for the whole week they were about their own business, and then on Sunday morning you're flipping through some page trying to you are disrespecting God. Right, so and maybe what I'll suggest to you, Sister Hastings, is that you could think of audio Bible. The audio Bible, you even whether night or day, or even just when you're tired, you can just type in. And also just on YouTube, you can go in YouTube, just type in whatever, say probably Luke chapter 6 audio, and you can even do the version that you want to, and you just play it, and it play it. You can just slide down there like in the at therapy, and you're just hearing it. So that means, right? I've heard elder person. I've heard elder persons that I've visited. They said that like the person who is elderly asks, play the audio Bible for mommy or whoever, and just turn it on and just read it for them.
Just like they do it.
I have this thing from Fort Worth Church here.
Right. I know the screen can sometimes have the lighting. The lighting, sometimes it kind of affect my, sometimes I have to take a break or sometimes I have to be quinting and it kind of dazzling. Especially this particular phone I'm using now, I find it's very too much light, too bright. The previous one I had was a little better, but this one I feel sometimes when I use it for too long, maybe an hour or two, sometimes I have to be closing my eyes like I need glasses or something. Right, so you can. Yeah, audio Bible. Right, so that's an idea. All right, so for the rest of us, the rest of chapter 6, and we guided by Deacon Buckles' outline. Note as well for those who are online that this will have access, can review in our own timing. We'll close with the hymn numbered 485 in the Baptist hymnal. Stand up for Jesus, ye soldiers of the cross. Lift high his royal banner. It must not suffer loss. 485. Of course, this having to do with commitment. So our response to God's word is one of commitment. Last week we respond with surrendering all. We are committed.
That was like Team Song 2018, we have a week of evangelistic meeting.
When 2018,
We have a week of evangelistic meeting.
it's a good crusade hymn as well. Yeah, it's normally used during crusade. Stand up for Jesus, ye soldiers of the cross. Lift high his royal banner, it must not suffer loss. From victory on to victory, his army shall he lead, till every foe is vanquished, and Christ is Lord indeed. Stand up for Jesus, the trumpet call obey, for to the mighty conflict in this his glorious day. Ye who are men now serve him against unnumbered foes. Let courage rise with danger, and strength to strength oppose. Stand up for Jesus, stand in his strength alone. The arm of flesh will fail you, he dare not trust your own. Put on the gospel armor, each piece put on with prayer, where duty calls or danger, be never wanting there. Stand up for Jesus, the strife will not be long. This day the noise of battle, the next the victor's song. To him who overcometh, a crown of life shall be. He with the King of glory shall reign eternally. Amen. Let us receive the benediction. Brothers and sisters, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up the light of God's countenance upon you and give you God's peace. Amen. Amen.